I wish the King had more pride in Britain. But it seems that every time King Charles visits the West Indies or Africa, he's got to crawl, he's got to grovel, he's got to apologise for Britain's wicked colonial past and pretend it was 100% evil. And it's the whole same story again on his visit this week to Kenya, where activists are hoping that after sorry comes reparations, free money.
The wrongdoings of the past are a cause of the greatest sorrow and the deepest regret. There were abhorrent and unjustifiable acts of violence committed against Kenyans as they waged, as you said at the United Nations, a painful struggle for independence and sovereignty. And for that, there can be no excuse.
Joining me from London every Wednesday is Patrick Christys, star presenter on GB News, which also, by the way, now has the fastest growing news site in Britain. It's on its way. Patrick, the King's slamming of British history in Kenya, the right thing to do, or is he letting Britain down a bit?
Well, it's absolutely the wrong thing to do. The King is supposed to be our envoy around the world, not going around on an international apology tour. And they're trying to spin it as the King stopped short of full frontal apology. Well, that's just a technicality. That was an apology. And yeah, we've seen it time and time again from the royal family. There was a lady whose real name is Marlene Headley, who went by the name of Ngozi Fulani and then dressed in full African clobber and attended an event at Buckingham Palace. She took a great umbrage as a member of the royal household, Lady Susan Hussey, who'd been the Queen's closest confidant for decades, asking her where she was really from, which might have been slightly clumsy, but also not the most ridiculous question, given the circumstances. They then apologised to her, but a little bit like this, Andrew, an apology is not enough. Next comes the handout. Next comes money. But, you know, for the Kenyans, we have actually given them billions of pounds over the years. They are a member of the Commonwealth. In fact, £132 million investment in Kenya went there just a couple of years ago. And can I just say, you know, whenever we see incidents take place in this country, if we see a terror attack or something like that, we don't ever expect an entire community to apologise for the actions of one rogue individual. So why should our entire country now, and every British person living in it and our current serving monarch, apologise for things that had nothing to do with him? Where are our reparations from the Norman conquerors or from the Viking and their ancestors, you know?
Look, it's true. And the other thing is, you know, couldn't he say, well, listen, there are bad things we did. There's good things we did. I mean, the intertribal slaughter we helped to ameliorate. We gave you democracy, even if Kenyans don't always live up to it as they should. We gave you the gifts of the English language. We gave you the rule of law. I mean, there's many institutional things. I've been to Kenya. I look around and I think, wow, if the British hadn't been here, this place would not be quite as good as it is. Not that the Kenyans have quite lived up to the legacy they were left.
Yeah, exactly. But also, if it hadn't have been us, it would have been someone else. I mean, the French were at it, the Portuguese were at it, the Spanish were at it, everyone was at it, OK? So if it wasn't the Brits that had gone in there at that particular moment in time, it would have been somebody else. And I don't see these other countries queuing up to apologise either. But it just ties into something else that's really going on in this country as well, which is, you know what kids are going to be taught in school today, don't you? That our king has gone abroad to Kenya and apologise for our past, which gives teachers another excuse to teach youngsters in this country now that Britain's past is terrible and that we were an evil force around the world. I mean, I've always said this, and I always will, that the world has been very lucky to have Britain, actually, and at times it has been a gift to the world. Yes, there were historic wrongs. Yes, there have been things that have gone wrong because things were different. Times were different back then. That's not to excuse them, but we shouldn't be apologising for those things now.
No, no, and no. Patrick, I'm just wondering who's running British foreign policy. Your Prime Minister is totally behind Israel. He's not calling for a ceasefire, went over to shake the hand of Benjamin Netanyahu. But your Lord Mayor of London, who's a Muslim, has a different foreign policy. There he is.
Thousands of innocent civilians, men, women and children have already been killed. I joined the international community in calling for a ceasefire.
That's almost seditious, isn't it? I mean, undermining his own government's policy. What's going on here?
Well, he's undermining his own government's policy. He's also undermining the leader of his own party, Sir Keir Starmer, who is also not calling for a full-blown ceasefire. He is calling for a humanitarian pause to proceedings, which, again, I think is a technicality, I suppose, isn't it? But, look, we are at the moment in a situation where we have a huge groundswell of opinion from a variety of different communities, mostly predominantly the Muslim community in this country, who are desperate for a ceasefire. They see this as a genocide against Muslims abroad. Now, a lot of these people are incredibly quiet when it comes to the actual genocide that took place against Israeli citizens and some of the heinous atrocities that took place there. But something that might have flown under the radar was that a new party was attempted to be registered with our electoral commission here just days after that Hamas attack in Israel. And that party, Andrew, was called the Party of Islam, which did not publish a manifesto but said that it vowed to stand for minority groups. Now, the concern there is that there has been a huge element of the Labour vote, of the Labour Party vote, which is a large Muslim vote. We have around 4 million of them in this country, who are now pulling away from the Labour Party, who conceivably, had the Party of Islam been accepted by the Electoral Commission, which it has not been, it's important to say, had it been, though, you could see there that we could have a fundamental religious-based party in this country flourishing out of something that's taking place thousands of miles away.
It's so dangerous. Patrick, I've got almost no time, just 2 seconds, but I find pro-Palestinian protests tend to be in your face, even violent. Pro-Israel ones not. People here today, pro-Palestinian, blockaded the office of the Deputy Prime Minister. 5 people arrested in Birmingham, England. Pro-Palestinian protesters painted boxes of mice in Palestinian colours and released them into a McDonald's restaurant for some bizarre reason. Well, that tells me something. But Patrick, I've run out of time to ask you your opinion. Sorry about that. Talk to you next week.